Will you be my dad for one day?" The words hung in the air of the Hells Angels clubhouse, like a grenade with the pin pulled. 10-year-old Sophie Martinez stood in the doorway, clutching a crumpled flyer about Bring Your Parent to School Day, her oversized foster care sweatshirt hanging off thin shoulders. Above her, the Hells Angels' winged Death's Head logo stared down from the wall. 15 Hells Angels members froze. Cards stopped mid-deal. Beer bottles hung suspended. This little girl with tangled brown hair and a Band-Aid on her chin had just walked into their world and asked for something none of them knew how to give. Before we continue, subscribe to Bike Diaries, because stories like this remind the world that goodness still exists. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments below. Hammer, the club's road captain, spoke first. His voice came out rougher than intended, scraped raw by decades of whiskey and highway wind. "Kid, how'd you even find this place?" "I walked," Sophie said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. 4 miles from Crossroads Group home. It took me almost 2 hours, but I remembered the way because I saw your motorcycles at the food bank last month when Miss Rachel took us there for Thanksgiving dinner. The Hells Angels exchanged glances that said we're all thinking the same thing, and none of us want to say it out loud. Kids from Crossroads didn't just wander over for social calls. Crossroads was where the system put children when nowhere else would take them, when their case files were too thick, and their trauma was too deep, and their chances were too slim. Reaper, the club president, rose slowly from his seat at the head table. He was a mountain of a man, 6'5" and solid as a Harley engine block, with a gray beard that reached his chest and eyes that had seen too much road and not enough redemption. He moved toward Sophie with the careful deliberation of someone approaching a wounded animal, something small and scared that might bolt at any sudden movement. "Where's Miss Rachel?" he asked, kneeling down until they were eye level. "Does she know you're here?" Sophie's chin trembled, but she locked her jaw with the kind of determination that comes from crying yourself empty too many times. "She thinks I'm in my room doing homework, but I can't do the homework because it's about family trees, and I don't have any family to put on the tree because my mom died when I was 6, and I never had a dad, and I've been in 7 foster homes and nobody keeps me." The temperature in the clubhouse dropped despite the Oklahoma heat bleeding through the walls. These were men who'd done hard time, men who wore their mistakes in ink and scars, men who'd built a brotherhood out of the pieces society threw away. But even they felt their throats tighten at the casual way this child recited her abandonment like a grocery list. "Why do you need a dad for one day?" Sophie pulled out the wrinkled flyer and smoothed it against her chest like it was something precious, something worth protecting. "Next Friday is Bring Your Parent to School Day. Everyone gets to bring their mom or dad to talk about their job, and everyone makes crafts together, and there's pizza, and..." Her voice cracked. "And last year I had to sit with the teacher while everyone else sat with their families, and Brooklyn Chen and her friends laughed at me and said I was unwanted trash that nobody loves." Wrench, the club's mechanical genius and the youngest member at 32, slammed his fist on the table hard enough to make bottles jump. "What kind of kid say that to a foster kid?" "Rich kids whose parents tell them they're better than everyone," Sophie said with the weary wisdom of someone who'd learned life's cruelest lessons too early. "Brooklyn's mom is on the PTA and she's always looking at me like I'm dirty. Last month she told Mrs. Patterson that foster kids shouldn't be in the same classroom as normal children, because we're disruptive." The rage that rippled through the clubhouse was palpable, a living thing that made the air shimmer like heat off asphalt. These men knew what it meant to be judged, to be dismissed, to be treated as less than human because of circumstances beyond control. "Who else gives you trouble?" Reaper asked, his voice dangerously quiet in the way that meant someone was about to learn a painful lesson about consequences. Sophie shrugged, trying to pretend it didn't matter, even though her eyes told a different story. "Brooklyn and her friends mostly. They take my lunch sometimes. They hide my backpack. Last week they pushed me down on the playground and told the teacher I fell. Mrs. Patterson knows they're lying, but she never does anything because Brooklyn's mom donates a lot of money to the school. Stone, the sergeant-at-arms who'd spent 15 years in Leavenworth for a crime he insisted he didn't commit, stepped forward. His face was a roadmap of violence survived, all broken nose and scarred eyebrows, and a jaw that had been wired shut twice. But his voice came out soft as church bells on Sunday morning. "Little sister, why did you come to us? We're not exactly model citizens." "I know," Sophie said, meeting his gaze with startling directness. "Miss Rachel told me that sometimes the scariest-looking people have the biggest hearts because they remember what it's like to be scared. She said you do toy drives at Christmas and help homeless people, and that you're loyal to each other no matter what." She took a shaky breath. "I need someone to be loyal to me, just for one day, just so Brooklyn knows that somebody thinks I'm worth showing up for. At Hearts because they remember being scared. She said you're loyal no matter what." Sophie took a shaky breath. "I need someone loyal to me, just for one day, so Brooklyn knows somebody thinks I'm worth showing up for." "We'll be there," Reaper said. Sophie's eyes went wide. "Really? You promise?" "We don't break promises to children, but I need the truth." He pointed at the Band-Aid. "What happened to your chin?" "I fell." "Try again." "Tyler, one of the older boys. He wanted my dessert and I said no and he pushed me." Reaper stood. "We're going to help you. Monday we talk to Crossroads. Friday we show up with enough presents that nobody messes with you again. Asking for help isn't weakness. It's the bravest thing you can do." Sophie cried hard, the kind that sounds like breaking and healing. Reaper gathered her into his arms and held her while she sobbed into his leather vest. "We got you now." When they took Sophie back to Crossroads, Miss Rachel listened to everything. "You'd really show up for a child you just met?" "We don't let kids down," Reaper said. Friday morning, Sophie woke at 5, trying on shirts, settling on purple. At 7:30, she heard it. The rumble. 15 Hells Angels motorcycles turned onto Maple Street in perfect formation. Chrome gleaming, engines singing. Neighbors emerged with frozen coffee cups. Sophie burst through the door, face transformed by joy. "You came." "Told you we would." Reaper pulled out a small leather vest with Sophie stitched across the back above, "Protected by Hell's Angels." "This means you're family now. Means we show up when you need us." If this story is touching your heart, hit subscribe on Bike Diaries. Your support helps us reach more people who need to hear about courage and unexpected family. They arrived at Riverside Elementary at 8:15. The motorcycles rolled in like a storm. Principal Morrison strode across the lot. "Gentlemen, I don't believe we authorized this many visitors." Reaper dismounted slowly. "Ma'am, I'm here for Bring Your Parent Day. This is my daughter Sophie. Sophie Martinez is a ward of the state. Today she's got family. We called Mrs. Patterson. She said guardians were welcome." Stone pulled out a business card. "We're licensed, insured, law-abiding. We've passed background checks for volunteer work with shelters and foster organizations. We're here to support Sophie." The card listed their charitable work. Principal Morrison's expression shifted. "You do charity work?" "Every Christmas we collect toys for Crossroads. We run a food pantry. We escort abuse survivors to shelters. We're not what you're expecting, but we're what Sophie needs." Principal Morrison looked at Sophie's smile. "Mrs. Patterson's classroom is second floor. Follow posted rules." "Yes, ma'am," 15 voices said. The walk through school was legendary. Children pressed against windows. Sophie held Reaper's hand, spine straight, no longer invisible. Mrs. Patterson's classroom went silent. Brooklyn Chen sat front row with her designer-clad mother. Her jaw dropped. Good morning. This is Sophie's family, Mrs. Patterson said warmly. They're bikers, Brooklyn's mother said sharply. They're my family, Sophie said clearly. The Hells Angels talked about loyalty, standing up for the defenseless, how real strength meant protecting instead of destroying. Stone told his story. I grew up in foster care, got moved around like unwanted luggage, had people tell me I was worthless, that I'd be dead or in prison by 25. They were half right. I did time, made mistakes I can't take back. He looked at Sophie. People who tell you you're worthless? They're wrong. Every time. You're not defined by who left you. You're defined by how you treat people when you have power to hurt them and choose kindness instead. Children cried. Parents wiped eyes. Brooklyn sat frozen. During crafts, Reaper wrote in block letters, "Family isn't blood, it's who shows up." At lunch, Brooklyn approached. "Your family is weird." Brooklyn's mother appeared. "Brooklyn, come away." "No, Mom, I want to talk to Sophie." Mrs. Chen flushed. "You don't tell me how to raise my daughter. People like you don't belong with decent children. You're criminals." Principal Morrison appeared. "Mrs. Chen, that's enough. These men are respectful guests. I won't tolerate discrimination." "Discrimination? They're bikers. And you told me foster children were inferior. I didn't act then because you're a donor. I'm acting now. You need to leave." Dead silence. Mrs. Chen stormed out. Brooklyn stood crying, looking lost. "I'm sorry," Brooklyn whispered. "I'm sorry I was mean. My mom, she makes me." Sophie looked at Reaper, who nodded. Then she hugged Brooklyn, who collapsed, sobbing. "It's okay to be scared of your parents," Sophie murmured. Jinx spoke up. "Brooklyn, does your mom hurt you?" Brooklyn nodded. "Where's your dad?" Stone asked gently. "Always working. He doesn't know how Mom is when he's gone." "He's going to know now," Reaper said. The next hour involved calls to social services. Brooklyn's father arrived white-faced. Learning his absence had consequences. Tyler got a visit from Stone and Wrench, who shared their own abuse stories. "You hurt little ones because someone hurt you," Stone said. "I did the same, but it doesn't make it right. It just spreads poison." Tyler, 15 with shaking hands, finally broke. "I don't know how to stop being angry. We'll help you learn, but you've got to choose different." The Hells Angels didn't solve everything, but they showed up. They made clear Sophie Martinez was not invisible, not unwanted, not alone. 3 months later, the Hells Angels officially became Sophie's mentors. They visited crossroads, teaching motorcycle maintenance, running self-defense workshops. They just showed up consistently. Brooklyn started sitting with Sophie at lunch. Her father filed for divorce. Brooklyn went to therapy. So did Tyler. So did Sophie. 1 year later, Sophie stood in front of Riverside Elementary. At 11, she'd grown, gained healthy weight. She wore her purple dress and Hells Angels vest. "Family isn't who shares your blood," she read. "Family is who shows up when you're alone and makes you feel seen." She looked at 15 Hells Angels in the front row. "Last year I asked these men to be my dad for one day. They said yes. Then they decided to be my family forever. They taught me real strength is choosing to protect people who can't protect themselves. Real strength is showing up even when it's hard. Real strength is proving every child deserves someone who thinks they're worth keeping." The auditorium erupted. Reaper wiped his eyes. Sophie ran to him. "Thank you for being my family." "Thank you for being brave enough to ask," Reaper said. "You taught us family isn't about perfection. It's about showing up, especially when it's messy and scary." If this story moved you, subscribe to Bike Diaries and share it. Your support helps us reach people who need hope. 2 years later, Sophie was placed in a stable foster home. The Hells Angels visited weekly, teaching her to change tires, check oil, trust her instincts. At 16, they threw her a party. Brooklyn came, volunteering at Crossroads. Tyler came, working as a mechanic's apprentice. Miss Rachel came, retired but checking on her kids. Reaper gave Sophie an envelope, a scholarship fund established by the Hells Angels for foster youth. Sophie's name was listed first. We can't change what happened before, but we can help build what happens next. You're worth investing in. You always were. Sophie cried. I was so scared that day. I almost turned around 100 times. What made you keep walking? I figured I had nothing to lose, but I was wrong. I could have lost the chance to learn some people keep promises. I could have lost learning what family means. Years later, Sophie graduated college with a social work degree. She returned to Oklahoma and worked at Crossroads. She rode her own motorcycle, a Hells Angels gift, wearing her vest proudly. Every Friday, 15 Hells Angels pulled up to Crossroads, sitting with foster kids, teaching them their past didn't define their future. The story of the orphan girl who walked into a Hells Angels clubhouse became legend. It inspired other clubs to start foster outreach. It reminded people that heroism doesn't wear capes. Sometimes it wears leather and rides 2 wheels. Will you be my family? And sometimes the answer is yes. Today, tomorrow, forever. Subscribe to Bike Diaries if you believe in redemption and unexpected family. Every share reaches someone who needs to know hope exists and change is possible. The clubhouse still stands. The Hells Angels' death's head hangs above the door. But now there's a framed photo of a little girl in purple and leather, smiling bigger than the sky, surrounded by 15 men who learned the most important ride was the 4-mile journey to show up for someone who thought she faced the world alone. They proved her wrong. They showed up, and they never stopped, because that's what family does.